Awesome. All right, you guys ready to roll? So I want to kick off a little bit differently today because I just think it'll be fun. Um, so there's some of you who come and hang out on a pretty regular basis. Some of you pop in and out. And sometimes my ability to interact with you guys is limited based on the guests, the content, whatever the case may be. So I kind of want to kick off today with something different and give us all a chance to talk to each other a little bit more. So I'm going to kick off today with some tell me something good. So I want to hear somebody's win for the day, for the week, for the month. I want to share some good news. So somebody, let's come off mute and let's share some wins together. And if you don't volunteer, then I volunteer, which gets really weird because then if you don't have anything, you're going to have to say you have nothing good, which is even weirder. So let's get a couple of good things that are happening in your worlds.
I don't know how much of a win this is. I think it's a win, but it's
Okay, then
not
it's a
like
win.
in Tom's universe, like sun coming over the horizon win. I did an open house in Brighton this weekend,
Okay.
and for the second time, it was pouring down rain. I did another open house a couple weeks ago. It's pouring down rain. Anyway,
Perfect. Perfect.
uh, I I had one person come in. I At the end, I packed up all my stuff, and it's a third floor walk up. And so I'm coming down the stairs, and what's at the front entrance but a woman? And so I hold the door open for her. She's like, "Oh, do you know anything about the open house?" I had taken the open house sign, the one on the window down. And I was like, "Oh, I was just finishing up." And she says, "Can we come up?" I said, "Absolutely, absolutely." And so they're investors, which this building gets a lot of that. And there's no offer yet. But the reason I'm telling the story is because she and her husband were walking down the sidewalk and saw the open house sign,
There you
and
go.
they
Well,
came in. It
that's
was
it.
just like, do signs really do it? Yes, they do. So that's my win,
Well, they do.
my win.
And it's the perfect example of putting yourself in the path of opportunity, right? Like
Hmm.
you mentioned, it was a rainy day, easy to, cancel an open house. Nobody's going to show up in this kind of weather, whatever the case may be. But you put yourself in the path of opportunity. And sure enough, right before you're about to wrap up for the day and leave, what happens? Opportunity literally walks through the door.
Right. And
That's
I'm doing another open house on Saturday, and it's going to rain again this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. But you know what?
I
We
know.
don't
I
let
have
that
to admit,
stop
I'm
us.
I'm getting a little frustrated as it's getting nicer. That it seems to be getting nicer Monday through Friday. That's a little bit annoying, but we'll roll with it. Eventually, it's the good weather's going to make it to the weekend too. All right, give me at least one more. Tell me something good.
Tom came off a mute, so I think he's going to share something, right, Tom?
Tommy, what do you got? Oh,
Tom, I
you're
think you're
muted.
still on mute.
I think you came off and went right back on.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I had a client that was interested in school campuses in New England, and I located one in Smithfield, Rhode Island. And we're under contract now over the last 2 days, and it'll be a cash sale at 5.7.
Wow, that's a big win.
Yeah,
Unique too.
yeah, it is unique. Yeah,
Yeah, very unique. All right. Well, that's a huge win. No wonder the world is circling around you instead of vice versa right now. Love it. Good stuff. All right. Thanks, Tommy. Anyone else want to share before we roll? Some good news, some wins that they want to share with the group? Going once, going twice. All right, cool.
Got a
Oh, you got one.
two-family.
Go ahead.
That guy that gets there just as you're ready to close.
Yeah.
Two-family, Watertown, Mass. We got asking price and no inspection. So over the weekend.
That's a win.
Yep,
It's a good
1.2.
Say that last part again.
1.2.
Love it. It's a beautiful thing. Awesome. All right. I hope you guys don't mind. I might do this every time now. I like hearing from you guys and hearing all the wins. Hopefully you guys like hearing from each other also. So here's what I wanted to talk about today. So a couple things. One, I was up teaching in a market center in New England They asked me to come up and specifically do some stuff about wealth, which I've kind of been typecasted into that. I keep telling everybody there are other things I can teach. So I'd love to come teach anything you would like, but there are other things. And what did I end up going up for was wealth training. But what was interesting is they had me do a couple of different sessions with different groups of people. And so I had a little bit of a range of content, and I just kind of let the room guide the conversation throughout the day as far as what I leaned into a little bit deeper and what I, kind of just snorkeled across the top of the water, if you will. And it was kind of interesting, and it tends to happen a lot, is a specific topic will attract a lot of people. Yet when you really start leaning into the conversations, the areas that they dive the deeper are often not necessarily the exact topic that they showed up for, which is I experienced a little bit of that in that particular training. So it made me think this is a good topic to bring to the table. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise today, and we're going to focus on ourselves. So rather than a specific agent interview today that has a specific strategy that we're going to learn from, or rather than a specific wealth building topic, we're going to lean into self. Because if you remember when I started these webinars, I promised we would focus on 4 topics. One was personal growth, production growth, profit growth, and our wealth building journey, right? Those are those 4 topics. So today we're going to kind of go into personal growth a little bit, or I would say self-leadership, really. And I'm going to have you guys do a little bit of an exercise, but first I'm going to share screen here because I can do that because even though I am single screen today, the amazing Cassie pulled an extra monitor out of her trunk so I can have dual monitors for this because she can just do that magic, right? All right, so you have my screen. We did the tell me something good. So how many people know what this is? Somebody unmute and tell me what we're looking at.
The path of being an entrepreneur to like running your business, basically, like getting past just the basics of entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Yep. So this comes from the 6 personal perspectives. And the idea that you hear us talk about a lot inside of KW is the E to P, right? So it's the E to P model. And the idea is exactly what Carrie just said. Most of us, when we start a new thing, including a real estate career, we kind of enter into that with an entrepreneurial approach, right? So that entrepreneurial approach means what we are doing and the results that we are getting are predominantly being driven by our drive, our enthusiasm, our intuition, our natural behavior, right? It's all the raw material and motivation that we bring to the table, and we just get after it, right? We just get after it and start getting stuff done. Right. And that's usually where our initial momentum comes from. Just that, again, that natural drive, that natural energy, that natural commitment to get out there and just stir the pot and start getting some stuff done. Now, the challenge is in all things, including real estate, there is a ceiling where eventually that entrepreneurial spirit only gets us so far and we start to hit a ceiling. Right. This is why it's so common in our industry. You see a lot of folks who will come into the industry and reach a certain level of production. So maybe, pick a number, they get to 10 million, 20 million, pick any number you want. And then they tend to just kind of live in that space for the rest of their career. Right. So maybe they got there in 5 years, but they spend the next 20 years just kind of living at that level of production. Right? Maybe they go up a little when the market swings up. Maybe they go down a little when the market swings down. But generally, they kind of swim around in that space. Right? Well, why is it that happens? The reality is they found their entrepreneurial ceiling. Right? Just operating off of their nature, that is their max capacity. Right? So that is the point at which, if we want to grow beyond that, right, we have to break through that entrepreneurial ceiling, and that's where we have to get purposeful. Right. So when we move from E to P, the entrepreneur to the purposeful, it's about focus. It's about strategy. It's about models, systems, and accountability. We have to look up and go, what do we need to do differently such that we can get a bigger result than what we're getting today, right? Now, usually when you hear this being taught, we'll move to the conversation of leverage, right? And leverage shows up in the form of two things. This is where you get a gold star. What are those two things? Leverage shows up in two ways. What are the two ways that leverage shows up? This is the gold star question.
Matt, would it be delegating some of your duties?
So that's absolutely a different way of saying one of them, right? It's usually people or systems, right? I either need to bring somebody in so that they can do a thing for me that I used to do on my own, which would be delegation, or I need to bring in a system that allows me to operate more efficiently so that I can accomplish more, right? So it's usually leverage in the form of either people or systems, right? People being delegation, systems being I've got a system that's either going to do a thing for me or do a thing more efficiently so that I can be more effective and more productive, right? So this E to P concept shows up in a lot of the KW training. The thing that's really important is a lot of times, like if I'm coaching and consulting with an agent or any business owner, and we're kind of at that ceiling, oftentimes we immediately go to human leverage and or we go to a system. But usually I see folks wanting to go straight to human leverage, right? I'm going to hire a person who's going to do XYZ for me so I don't have to do it. Here's the reality. My belief is the vast majority of the time, especially the first time we hit that ceiling and we're looking at breaking through the ceiling, the first thing we need to look at is actually ourselves. Am I operating in my most efficient capacity currently? Right? Before I bring somebody else in to say, I'm going to have somebody else take things off of my plate, or I'm going to invest in some form of technology or whatever the case may be, am I actually operating most efficiently? Right? And if we wanted to figure that out, where would we go? What would be the first thing to look at to say, am I making the most of myself before I worry about bringing other people and or new systems into my business or my life? Like, where would we look?
Your calendar and your profit and loss statement?
Yeah, it's almost like you're cheating, right? So from a time standpoint, right? So most of you, if you've hung around with me long enough, you've heard me quote. And I can only tell you where I heard it. I don't know if he was the originator of the quote. I heard it from Brian Buffini training a long time ago. And it was, if you're feeling stress in your life, take a look at your bank account and your calendar. You are probably spending both time and money on things that are not in alignment with your goals. Right. When I heard that, to me, that was a very, very powerful statement. Right. If you're feeling stress in your life, take a look at your bank account and your calendar. You are probably spending both time and money on things that are not in alignment with your goals. Right. So really, really smart statement to look up and go, okay, well, if I do look at my calendar and if I do look at my bank account, does it reflect the things that I'm actually trying to accomplish? Does it reflect the things that are most important to me? Right. So the first thing I want to do, well, two quotes I wanted to share, and then we're going to do a little bit of an exercise. So if you're driving, do the exercise in your head. Please do not try to follow along. Actually, if you're behind the wheel of a car, or pull over if you really feel inclined to participate. But first, two quick quotes. One is, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. That is Aristotle. And then people do not decide their future. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their future. F.M. Alexander. Okay. All right. So here's the exercise. I'm going to ask, and I want you to play along, right? To get something out of this, you got to play along with me. So I'm going to ask you to take out a blank piece of paper. Give me little thumbs up emojis or something once you do that. I just want a blank piece of paper and a pen, pencil, whatever you use to write with, charcoal, a feathered quill, whatever you've got. All right, give me a thumbs up when you have blank paper. All right, got blank paper, writing utensil, I'm getting thumbs up. Cool. All right, here's what I want you to do. On that paper, I want you to draw as big a circle as you can draw without going off the paper. So I don't care if you have it horizontal, landscape, do whatever you want. Same size circle is going to fit on the paper. Not an oval. Don't cheat. It's a circle. So draw a circle that fits on the paper. Yes, that is a circle, not an oval. Well done. It's a very well drawn circle, I will add, by the way. Good job, Michael. All right, so we got a blank piece of paper and a circle. Here's what I want you to do. This is just a brain dump. I'm going to give you a few minutes, but I want you to move rapidly, very, 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 very quickly. Inside of that circle, I want you to write down all the things that you can think of that you have done in the last 2 weeks and you're going to do this week. Everything, personal, business, all the stuff you have to do. When I say go, you're just going to write as fast as you can until I tell you to stop. Right? That's every single thing, big, small, minutia, not minutia, expected, unexpected, doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to furiously write it until I tell you to stop. Everybody ready? Okay. On your mark, get set, go. I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds. Keep writing. Okay. Wrap up your final items there, and then just give me some real or emoji thumbs up when you're ready to keep going. I got one. I got two. The rest of you are off camera. All right, here we go. We got some off camera thumbs up. Okay, cool. I know you're still with me. Awesome. All right, cool. All right. All right. Here's what I want you to do next. I'm just going to ask you to take 30 seconds. I want you to circle the things that you have, that you wrote down, that are activities that are moving you towards one of your most important goals. So circle the things that you wrote down that are activities that are moving you towards one of your most important goals. So you're just going to look at everything you wrote down, scan it all, if it is an activity that is moving you towards one of your most important goals in inside or outside of business, I want you to circle those. Okay. All right, now you guys are going to have to come off mute and participate with me, or this is just going to get weird and boring. So for those of you who are willing to share, this is a safe place, I hope. I like to think. We're just recording it and posting it on YouTube. Perfectly safe. I'm only kidding. Although I think we do post these on YouTube. So I guess be a little bit careful.
We
about
can
what to share.
we can edit
But
out
we
as
can't
we
edit.
need to.
If we get too personal, we can edit. So this is just between me, you, and the millions of people on YouTube. So feel very safe to be transparent. But honestly, so Michael, I saw you come off mute.
Yep.
Tell me what you saw when you went through this exercise.
You got to be more.
What's on your paper? What do you see? You've got all the activities that you've done in the last couple of weeks or will do this week. And then you circled the items that are moving you towards your goals. When you look at that,
Right.
What jumps out at you?
The usual suspects of create content, lead gen, show property, call owners. Yeah.
Those are the activities that are moving you towards your goals.
Yes.
Okay. Of all the things that you wrote down in that circle, what percent of those things are made up of the items you just talked about?
Probably about 20%.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if
There you go. Okay. So I love that. That is such a good visual. And you draw a great circle. Good for you. That's not your first circle. You've drawn circles before.
not my first rodeo, man.
There you go. So that's actually a perfect visual when you look at that. So 20% of everything you drew inside of that circle is moving you towards one of your most important goals.
Yep.
Knowing the 80-20 rule, what does that tell us?
That simply 80% of our production is done with 20% of the activities.
Exactly. So where do we want to spend 80% of our time?
Those things that make it happen.
20%.
That's right.
Yeah. So what we want to move towards, right? And there's no such thing as perfection in life. It's progress. We chase perfection so that we can achieve excellence. Yet, when we see that visual, what we really want to do is work towards closing that gap where those 20% activities are actually chewing up 80% of the time, right? Which leads to the next question, which is what in that circle am I doing that if I stop doing today, nobody would care, right? And those are the activities first we want to start scratching off to create more space for our 20% activities.
Yep.
Because we want to start closing that gap from spending 20% of our time on the 20% most productive and move towards 80% of our time on our 20% most productive. Tom, I think you unmuted.
Yeah, I wound up with 11 in the circle. And then when you said the circle, the most important in that circle, I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4 that were most important. Number 1 being MLS generated reverse prospecting. That's worked out well for me, following up on those.
Yep.
Mailing expired on commercial listings, getting offers in, of course, and setting up alerts for new requests.
Love it. Yep. Awesome. And then I would ask the same question. And so if that's 3 to 4 out of 11 of the whatever the math that is, 7, 8 that are left, what items are in there that if I stop doing today, nobody would even notice that could clear space for me to do more 20% activities. Right. And the real reason that I wanted us to take the time to go through this is the reality is if we don't audit it on a regular basis, when we do, we will typically discover that we have massive opportunity just sitting in our calendar. Right? It's kind of that old saying of when you say, it's our habits that create our life, and our calendar is really a record of our habits, right? So my argument is, when we're hitting that entrepreneurial ceiling and we're thinking about how do we get to that next level, the first place to go isn't always Indeed, right? The first place to go isn't always a piece of technology. I would argue the very first system to look at is our calendar. Are we maximizing ourselves first? And are we auditing that on a regular basis to ensure that we're getting the most out of ourselves that we can possibly get? And that isn't always about doing more. As a matter of fact, it's almost always not about doing more. It's about doing less and doing more of what matters the most, right? Did anyone else want to share before we move on to some hacks that can help us with our own effectiveness and efficiency? Anybody else want to share?
I did.
Carrie, what do you got?
Well, two things. One, I noticed that I didn't have enough room in my circle.
There you go. Yep,
Thanks,
that's a common
everyone.
one. Starts spilling out. Yep.
So when he said 11, I was like, who are you?
You
11.
haven't met Tommy. The world circles around Tommy, not
Apparently.
the opposite.
And for me, it's like the things that I would love to stop doing that take up time, my family wouldn't appreciate, like cooking or, organizing the house. So really, I've been realizing I need to figure out that leverage of how to have assistance in my house so I can focus on my business.
So I love that. I'm going to hold on to that because you just gave me a perfect transition. And before I do transition, anybody else want to share? You got a fan club in the chat, Carrie.
Oh, I'll share.
Go ahead. What do you got, Sherry? Oh, you went back on mute.
Oh, hi.
There you
So I noticed that quite a few of the things in my circle had to do with technology, and it makes me so anxious to do some of these things. So I haven't done them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's not getting me anywhere. It's just more stress because I know I should do them.
go.
And it's just, I gotta get over it, or I've gotta just do it. I don't really know.
Sherry, can I ask what's holding you back? And be specific about the technology.
Because I don't want to do it myself, because the first time I tried, and the second and the third, I've just wasted so many hours trying to figure it out, and I just don't know who to call. Because I know not a lot of people really want to, deal with technology and
Well, can you give me an example?
smart plans.
Okay.
Like I've created
YouTube.
them.
Okay, YouTube is huge, and I would ask chat.
Yeah, great suggestions. YouTube is awesome. Chat GPT is phenomenal. I'm very quickly becoming rapid friends with Chat GPT. The amount of things that it can help with, do for you is pretty amazing. And Sherry, you happen to be in my market center. So reach out to me and I can get you connected with somebody who can also help you with that. So Chat GPT, YouTube, there's actually training videos within Command for those specific activities. And if you shoot me a text to remind me before this webinar is done, I'll make sure I get you connected with somebody who can help with that. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But these are great examples, right? So let's jump into, you guys still have my screen, right? My slides. Okay. So I'm going to go through a couple things. Some of these you've probably heard from me before, because I go back to these things on a regular basis when it comes to leading ourselves and maximizing our time. So one is an exercise. I can't see Cassie on the screen right now, but I guarantee she's laughing. because anybody who has worked with me has heard this 1,001 times. And
Yes,
this is
she
the
was
15
laughing.
Yeah, see, I don't even need to see her to know. As soon as the slide came up, she's like, oh, here he goes again. And by the way, anyone who's worked with me has heard this 1,000 times. And by the way, it's a thing that I still do personally. 15-minute exercise is this. Very annoying, right? So let me just call it for what it is out of the gate. Very annoying and extremely effective. 15-minute exercises for 1 week, 7 days. You carry some little notepad around with you. If you want to do it in the notes in your phone, that's fine, but something that you can take notes in, right? And for 1 week, every 15 minutes, you are going to jot down what you did in the last 15 minutes. You're not writing a paragraph. It should be 2 to 5 words max. Clearing email, returning phone calls, right? Eating breakfast, right? We're not writing a book. This is not to chew up time, right? So every 15 minutes, you just jot down what you did. By the way, a couple of pro tips. If you are driving and it's a 30-minute drive, halfway through, do not pull out a notepad and start writing. Just when you get where you're going, mark off that 30-minute time frame, driving to whatever, right? Same if you're at a listing appointment, don't stop every 15 minutes and make a note. End of the listing appointment, this time to this time, listing appointment. But for 7 days straight, you're going to track every single thing you did in 15-minute increments. At the end, you can do it at the end of every day, or you can do it at the end of the week. You're going to pull out a green highlighter, and you are going to highlight everything first in your business that is dollar productive. Now, to be clear, dollar productive means it produces business.
Wait a minute. So I'm going to stop my day every 4 times an hour.
You are not, you're going to stop for about 3 seconds. You're
Okay.
gonna keep the pad next to you, and in 3 seconds, you're going to jot down what you just did in the last 15 minutes.
Okay.
Don't turn this into a project. Don't turn it into a time.
Okay.
And don't overthink it. Every 15 minutes, it's seconds that you're going to jot down. Clearing email, on a webinar.
Yep. Okay.
Whatever the case may be. End of the week, you're going to highlight everything that was dollar productive. Dollar productive meaning it generates business. Okay. You can do the same on the personal side. Just grab a different color. Anything that is an activity that's important to your primary goals, you're going to highlight. Here's what we end up doing. Number one, you will find that you have a very productive week. Reason is we're paying more attention. What you focus on expands. B, it's human nature. You're going to try to impress yourself. So you're likely going to have a very efficient week. That being said, regardless of how efficient you are that week, I can guarantee you're going to find a whole bunch of time that is being lost minutes at a time, right? Because here's the reality. What you end up discovering is, one, we usually lose our day in tiny increments, not so much big chunks. And you start to identify what are those tiny increments that are chewing up my day. For me personally, when I did this the very first time, I like to think I was a pretty on-task guy, pretty focused, follows a routine, yada, yada, yada. I did this exercise and I found 2 hours a day of wasted time. None of it was wasted in 1 hour chunks, 30-minute chunks, 45-minute chunks. It was small chunks. And by the way, some of it was work activities during the workday, but it's the way I was doing it, right? The example I always use, which makes me sound very, very old, but at the time, text messaging existed, but it wasn't the means of communication that it is today, that we all use all day, every day, and is wholly accepted, right? It was still very much a phone call culture, right? With my clients, I started asking them, hey, when it comes to communicating simple things, are you comfortable with a text message? And I would get permission to use text message. Why? As an example, if I'm calling to say, hey, home inspection is scheduled for this time, I'll be there, that can turn into a 20-minute conversation when all I really needed to do is deliver a date and a time, right? So a lot of it was little things like that. Some of it was conversations that happened in the office, right? Where I developed a new habit when somebody said, hey, do you have a minute? I had a different answer because my answer used to be, yeah, what's up? And next thing you know, I'm losing time. So I created a new answer, which was, is it urgent or can I call you on my drive home? The response I would usually get now was, oh, it's not even important. Don't worry about it. And they would walk away. To which I just bought back whatever time they were about to take from me. Sometimes they would say, yeah, drive home is fine. And I'd say, cool, I'll be headed home around this time. I'll give you a shout then. And I'd add a note to my calendar to remind me. Other times they would say, actually, it's kind of urgent. And I would say, okay, cool, come on in, close the door, right? And give them the time because it needed it at the moment. My point is, what I discovered at the time is I was often, not always, but often, not making it home to dinner with my family. Yet, when I went through this exercise, what I saw is there's 2 hours a day being lost minutes at a time, which means those little moments of wastefulness are being prioritized over dinner time with my family. Whether I like hearing that or not, that's a fact. If I am aware of it and not doing something to correct it, then I am saying it's more important, right? We have to remember with our time and money, every time we say yes, we say no. Every time we say no, we say yes, right? So if I'm saying yes to those wasteful moments, I'm saying no to being at the dinner table with my family. Those are the little things you catch, okay? So that exercise is really powerful. To this day, if I hit a stage where I know I'm putting in the hours, but I'm not quite sure what I'm accomplishing, right? Like I put in the hours, but at the end of the day, I'm going, what exactly did I accomplish today? If I find myself in that zone, I go back to this exercise to figure out, okay, what am I doing? Is it actually productive? And what do I need to stop doing? And what do I need to get back to doing? So it's a great exercise. Okay, next piece, our next little cheat is, and this one is familiar, I think, to all of us. Once we determine what are all those activities that we're doing. And by the way, I'm going to go back to the 15-minute exercise again. The other place where that is really beneficial is when you are hiring somebody that you intend to leverage activities to. That exercise can be a great opportunity for you to see what are the things that I do that take the most amount of my time and do need to be done, but not necessarily by me. I am going to leverage activities to that new employee in that order. I'm going to say, okay, the very first thing that I could train them on and hand off to them is this, because that thing currently consumes the most amount of my time. And yes, it has to be done, but I don't actually have to be the one doing it. So now that I do have somebody to do it, that's the first thing I'm training you on, because that's going to open up the most amount of my calendar once I do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's jump to the next one. Dad. I didn't even know that was going to spell dad until I wrote it, and now it spells dad. This one I think we're familiar with. It used to be the do it, dump it, delegate it. And now I would argue it's the do it, or it's the dump it, automate it, delegate it, or do it. And that is simply once we narrow tasks down to the things that do have to happen, the question then becomes, do I actually have to be doing them? Right? So when we're looking at getting rid of inefficiencies and creating efficiencies in our calendar and our business, the first question is, if I stop doing it today, would anybody care? If the answer is no, stop doing it. We all do things that we think are important. And in reality, they're actually not important. Those are things we want to identify and just stop doing and buy back that time, buy back any resources that are going into them. Just stop it, right? Usually in the past, we went from dump it to delegate it. And I would argue today there's a step in between, which is automate. So if I can't dump it, it does have to be done. The next question is, in today's world, can it be automated so that it's happening, but I don't have to think about doing it or manually do it myself? If I can't automate it, then I go to delegate it. Is it something that has to be done? It can't be automated, but I'm not necessarily the person who has to do it. And yes, I have somebody in my world who can. Now, when it comes to delegation, I used to get the question, I still do often, when do I know that I'm ready to hire, to make a hire? right? And we all know in business, if we're following the MREA, our first hire is a what?
Admin,
Admin. What's our second hire?
another admin.
Oh my, thank you. You just got like the triple platinum gold star. I cannot tell you how many times people say the second hire is a buyer's agent, and it is not a buyer's agent. It is an admin, and then it is an admin, right? First two hires should be administrative support. Because remember, the MREA model and business building in general, if we just think of it like a loaf of bread, we are essentially just slicing off the least dollar productive activities in order and handing them off to a system or a person. Now, least dollar productive does not mean not important. Those are not the same thing. Something can be massively important and not be dollar productive, right? But we're just slicing off those things that we can get somebody else to do for us so that we can open up space for us to be in our strength zone more often, making a better contribution to our business or our personal life, personal goals, whatever it is, right? So it's dump it, automate it, delegate it. And lastly, yes, it has to be done. And I am the only one who can do it. That would be, then I do it, right? So I'm going to come down to the next two. One, and again, if you're around me a lot, you hear me say this over and over and over and over ad nauseum, which is I do a lot of different things, right? I have the market center, I have the regional responsibilities, I have a software company, I have a family, I have a lot of plates spinning at any given time. One of the ways in which I am able to juggle all of those things, or one of the strategies that I use, is always looking for an opportunity to do one thing that causes multiple outcomes. So how do I pull one lever and get multiple outcomes? Okay, so like the example I used with the market center that I was with, because we were talking about wealth building, and wealth building is made up of three pillars: making money, saving money, and investing money. So we were talking about productivity as well as profitability and investment strategies. So in the context of that conversation, it was okay, well, if it is your goal to invest in real estate, how do you take that goal and establish strategies that allow you to grow your real estate business while also creating opportunities to potentially invest, right? And we talked about different strategies. One, you could focus your strategies within your business to get listings in a direction that could create investment opportunities. So maybe you prospect to probate, maybe you prospect to multifamily properties or short-term rentals, if that's the type of investment you want, right? Target your lead generation for listings towards investment opportunities. And in the process, you're going to put yourself in front of the opportunity and learn about the opportunities. Another example is to ask the simple question every time you go on a listing appointment: is there any reason that you and I should be talking about a cash offer on your home today? Right? I know an agent personally who bought 3 houses in 1 year just by adding that question to their listing presentation, right? That is an example of 2 birds, 1 stone. I pull one lever, I create the opportunity for multiple outcomes. Myself as an agent, one of my best listing tools was I did invest on the side as an agent, and I ran cash offer ads. When I got a call, I would go to that appointment, and my conversation would be, I am a full-time real estate agent. My bread and butter is helping people buy, sell, and invest in real estate. That's what I do all day, every day. I'm also an investor, and I do work with other investors. I don't ever want someone to accuse me of taking advantage of them. So what I'm going to do today, I know you called about a cash offer. I'm going to go through and give you both scenarios. One would be cash offer. Take what you want, leave what you don't, pick your closing date, no repairs, nice and quick, nice and simple. But I'm also going to tell you what it would look like to go the traditional route. And whichever one works best for you, that's what we'll do. Well, the reality is the vast majority of the time, they chose the listing. So even though the activity was geared towards finding an investment opportunity, the manner in which I handled it produced one of 2 outcomes: the opportunity to buy a property or the opportunity to list a property, right? One activity, multiple results. This webinar is an example of that, right? This webinar goes to my agents, it goes to agents in other market centers, right? So it's serving my own agents from an OP, market center OP standpoint. It's serving the region from an RD standpoint. So it's one thing I can do that has multiple outcomes, right? So when we're looking to create those efficiencies, what are the things that I can do that cause multiple things to happen? Okay. And then I'm going to give you the last one, which is a little bit more complicated, and then we'll open it up for questions and we'll wrap up for the day. So this one has a little bit of a story behind it, so I'm going to tell it as quickly as I can. For those of you who know, I have the software company RE Profit, which automates financials for agents. So it connects to bank accounts, credit cards, automates an MREA, profit and loss statement, budgeting, tracking ROI on marketing, lead gen, all that stuff. When we built that software, I worked with the development team, which was a very interesting learning curve. And the way that looked in the very beginning is I went to meet with this development team that was out of Washington, D.C. And we sat in a room with 8 software developers, and we would describe the vision. This is what we want to build, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is what it has to be able to do. And we'd explain the vision of the functionality and the look and the feel and all the stuff. And they would sit there and translate that into what they would have to build, right? The technical side of it. And believe it or not, they would write each little piece on a sticky note. This was a little concerning in the very beginning. I'm like, wait a minute, I just hired this big development team and y'all are working on sticky notes? This is concerning. This is actually how software is built. So they take everything we're sharing with them and they break it down into tiny little nuggets of what exactly is going to have to be built. They put them on sticky notes. This was a long boardroom with a big glass wall looking out over the city. By the end of the day, that entire glass wall was obstructed by sticky notes. You ever see that commercial for sticky notes of like people walking around and they're covered and that room is covered? You ever see that commercial? Like everything is covered in sticky notes? That's what this room looked like. An entire wall, floor to ceiling, sticky notes. But here's what they did. For every task they wrote down, they rated that task based on 2 factors. How important is it? And how difficult is it? And they assigned points. And then they took all those sticky notes and they organized them on the wall into what they call sprints. A sprint is a 2-week window. And they said, okay, we can handle 30 points of difficulty in a 2-week period. So what they then did is reorganized all those sticky notes based on how important, the order in which they had to get it done, and how difficult it was. They reorganized them all into 2-week sprints. So each chunk had all the things they were going to have to build that all had a difficulty rating that they could handle in that time frame. And then the next 2 weeks was filled the same way, and the next and the next and the next. Now, here's the good news. They then took all that and put it into an actual software program that managed the project from that point forward, but it worked just like the sticky notes. They would work through that sprint. If they ran into something that was more difficult than they expected, it took longer, they would have to kick some points over to the next sprint. And then it was like dominoes. If I added 2 points to the next sprint, that means I had to kick 2 points to the next and the next and the next. And this is how we moved through the build. So for every 2-week window, they had everything they had to build. And there was a level of flexibility. So they had everything they had to do. And it was designed based on how important and how difficult it was to do. And then there was a flow for unexpectedness, a flow of flexibility. All right. So here's how I share that. It's kind of become how my brain works since then, is when I look at all the things I have to do, I go through an order of operation to figure out what am I doing first and when am I doing it. So when we think about our GPS, our 411, our calendars, just even a 1 day's to-do list, right? The first thing I look at is there anything on there that I have to do a piece of? And after that, I'm handing it off to somebody else and they're going to complete it. That is a thing I'm likely going to prioritize. especially if my end of it is really easy, right? Because I just need to do this one thing. Maybe I need to answer a question or do this one thing, and then I hand it off. And once I do, I can go do something else, and that thing is moving forward because somebody else is running with the ball now, right? I'm going to do that quickly. Because again, I can do it fast, and once I'm done doing it, someone else is moving that ball while I go pick up a different ball and start moving it. Then I'm going to look at everything based on importance and difficulty, right? So we always have our key things like, lead generation that we should be doing consistently. But all these other things, I will look at them and say, okay, how important is it and how hard is it? Well, that's really important, but it's going to take me a few hours to get that done. I've got these other two things that are really small things. They're important and I can get them done really quickly. Let me bang out those three really small things so that they're done and they're off working. Now I'm going to come back and dedicate my time to this hard thing. Right? So you start looking at your calendar, your schedule, your tasks, all the things you have to do and kind of run them through that. How important is it? How difficult is it? Right? So if we use an example like your GPS, a lot of times we get overwhelmed by our GPS because by the time we're done, we have 15 activities, right? We have 3 priorities, 5 activities per priority. That's 15 activities. That's enough to overwhelm most people. How am I going to do all these things? Well, number one, in those activities, you should have 2 buckets, repeat activities and what I would call projects. Repeat activities are things like lead gen. That's just a thing I have to do over and over again. Okay, great. That I can take off, put in my calendar when I'm going to do it, and then forget about it on the GPS. Just make sure I do it when it shows up in my calendar. Now I can move to the next most important thing, right? I might have 2 things next, one of which is really easy to implement, and one is a big project. That's where I start to use this model to go, okay, am I going to tackle the big project now and let this other thing wait? Or am I just going to bang out this little thing quickly because it'll take me 2 hours, where this other project I'm going to have to commit time to over a couple of weeks? Maybe you're planning a seminar, right? Now you start to prioritize, okay, this thing is important, but I can also get it done quick. I'm going to get that done quick. Now that thing is working. Now I've freed up that space, not only in my brain, but in my calendar to come back to the big thing and commit my time to the big thing. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we are at 11:55. I'm going to challenge you to do this. I'm going to challenge you to do the 15-minute exercise. And I would love to hear what you pull out of it. It is super annoying. I don't ever offer this up without clarifying. I am fully aware how annoying it is. It annoys me when I do it too. The only advice I can give you is do it and don't overcomplicate it. If you're writing more than 2 to 5 words to explain what you did in 15 minutes, you're overcomplicating it. Should be 2 to 5 words, period. Shouldn't take you more than a second. I encourage you to do that. And I would also encourage you, as just the first step, look at that little exercise we did in the circle and just ask yourself 2 questions. What's one thing I can stop doing right now that will give me more time to do something more important? Just one. And secondly, what is one thing that either A, I'm not doing that I should be, or I'm not doing enough as I should be? And what is the small commitment you can make to move that thing forward? Right? So what's the one thing I can stop doing? And what's the one thing that I can take action on to start and or increase my activity around? And set a tiny goal, right? If it's lead generation and you're not doing it at all, be like, okay, I'm going to make 1 call a day for the next 5 days. 1 call, right? If you're at nothing, just start really small, right? If you're already doing quite a bit, maybe it's just 1 small tweak that creates more efficiency, but just shoot for what's one thing I can stop doing, one thing I can start doing that will positively impact the efficiency and effectiveness of how I'm using my time, right? Questions, comments, ahas?
I just want to throw in, looks like we've had a lot of dialogue around this conversation lately as well. And one thing that I've added to my morning structure because it's so easy to be like, okay, like we need to check email first, see what's going on, and like get into whatever communication that we're using for the day. And I don't know if it was a conversation with you or in the book I threw in the chat, but complete one priority by 11 a.m. every day. So it just has like it switched my mentality around it a little bit to do that before I open up my inbox. So at least one main priority is accomplished before I get into whatever else the day may throw at me, right? So I found that to be really effective.
100%. It was so I happened to be listening to the One Thing podcast on the way in today, and there were a couple little nuggets. One was I forget how they phrased it, but it was essentially start your day with your goals. So like before you go to your phone, before you do anything, just look at your day and what is the goal for the day, right? And just making that the first thing you do helps to wire your brain towards that focus. And the other thing, which I'm not going to remember now, they called our phone the dirty digital something. I forgot what it was. I mean, they were referencing what a time suck it is, right?
Yeah.
That when we start our day just diving right into our phone, which largely is the whole world communicating things to us that we didn't ask for. I mean, that's 90% of what happens on this thing is the world communicating things to us that we didn't ask for. And most of us get up and just get a giant bowl and a spoon and just start devouring all of it, whether it's social media, emails, junk email, all the nonsense. And before you know it, we look up and there's no space for us to get our stuff done that actually matters because we got a bowl full of nonsense that the world's fed us in a giant spoon, right? So I appreciate you sharing that, Cassie. Any other ahas or comments before we jump? Was this helpful? I've got some nodding heads and silence. Yeah, absolutely in the chat. Perfect. I'm getting thumbs up. Cool. All right. So again, education without action is entertainment. I hope you enjoy the time we spend together, but my goal is not to be an entertainer. So I hope that you will take a nugget from today and take action on it so that you can actually get results from the time that we spent together. That being said, Cassie, are we on next week?
That is a great question. Yes, we are on next week.
We are on. So I will see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.